Good afternoon and welcome to Naturally Chicago's webinar, Succeeding at Sprouts. I'm pleased to introduce Greg Keller, Naturally Chicago's Senior Strategist and Brand Advisor Superhero. Greg heads our Locally Made program, which connects brands directly with retailers. Greg?
Thank you, Bob. Really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for joining us as we're really excited to bring the Sprouts team, and Katie Paul is here with us from KeHE as well. Very excited to bring Sprouts team to talk to our Naturally Chicago team about something that we've been hoping would happen for a very long time, and we're on the cusp of having Sprouts in our market, which we're super excited about. So, what I'd like to start is, if first the Sprouts team can introduce themselves, their role, and what they're doing, and Katie as well. If we can just get some introductions out of the way, we can hop right in here. Kim, you're muted up.
There we go. Well, thanks for kicking us off. We are more than excited to be on the call today. I can't believe we're finally here talking about coming into the market. So it's super exciting, and I appreciate Katie being on. Obviously, being based there in Chicago is going to, her and her team are going to be critical to how we execute in the market. So, my name is Kim Coffin. I oversee our foraging team here at Sprouts. I've been with Sprouts for about 16 years, mostly on the merch side of our business, up until about 4 years ago when we formed our current foraging team, which really is comprised of our emerging brand program, our Sprouts brand, our private label program, and our culinary team. And today on the call with me, you have our emerging brand team. So I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Well, thanks, Kim. Excited to be here, everybody. Thank you all for joining. My name is Brody Burke. I am a senior foraging manager at Sprouts, and I've been here for 14 years. And as you guys can imagine, we've had a lot of questions on when we're going to get out to Chicago finally. So we're excited to be here to talk to everybody here and hopefully get to meet a lot of you after this call. Very excited. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Mason.
Thanks, Brody. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Mason Webb. I am a foraging manager here at Sprouts. So I work very closely with Brody, and then we reported to Kim. I've been with Sprouts for non-consecutively almost 9 years. So was in the stores and worked my way up, which is super exciting. Thrilled to be entering the Chicago market here in the future, but looking forward to having a great conversation and meeting some of you guys here in the future. And with that, I'll pass it on over to Katie with KeHE.
Thanks, Mason. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Paul. I lead our merchandising functions at KeHE. So that includes all of our Catman, supplier management, master data management, and our own exclusive brands as well. Been with KeHE for about 17 years, spent most of my time in or on the merchandising team, and then have been leading the team for the past 4 years. I'm on the board and the executive committee of the Naturally Chicago chapter, as well as on the national board with Kim, supporting the full network. So very passionate about you guys and everything that Naturally Chicago brings to the market.
Thanks so much, Katie. Kim, if we could get you to kind of set the stage and talk a little bit more about Sprouts, a little bit about the history, the stores, the market, your growth, just some exponential stuff that's been going on and a lot of stuff that's coming in the future as well is very exciting. So I'll let you start there, please.
Yeah. So not sure how many folks have actually visited a Sprouts, but I'll give a quick kind of overview. So I like to start with, our purpose is to help people live and eat better. It's pretty simple. We're a natural organic retailer that, is really known for the products that we curate. And, our customer, I would say, is very health forward. We call them health enthusiasts. They come to us for attribute-based products, that support healthy, sustainable living. And so that's a big focus for us is staying ahead of their journey. So we're really focused on the health and wellness customer. Sprouts started as a fruit stand in San Diego back in the day. And now we're one of the fastest growing grocery retailers in the country, which is amazing. I think when I started at Sprouts, we had 140 stores. We had just acquired Henry's and Sunflower chains, and now we have just eclipsed over 500 stores in 25 states. We actually have two grand openings this Friday on the same day in California and Florida, which is not unusual for us to open 2 or 3 stores in a day, which is crazy. And when you look really at the white space, we think we can get to over 1,000 stores, based on where our customers are. We're currently in 25 states. And our plan is to, open 40 to 50 stores a year into the foreseeable future. So, the growth is exponential, and I never thought I'd see 500 stores, and now to think of 1,000, just super exciting. The format is unique. If you've never been in a Sprouts, they're smaller stores. 20,000 square feet to 28,000, depending. Our newer stores are smaller format, but really easy to shop and approachable. When you walk into a Sprouts, you can see across the entire store. Produce is our anchor right in the middle. So, when we say center store, it means fresh. And so that's at the heart of what we do, and we over 50% of our sales in produce are organic. So really big presence there. And then, we have a really extensive vitamins department. We play pretty big in bulk. Our meat business is very differentiated and attribute based. So super unique there. And to be honest, our people are what really make our purpose come to life. Not only in our support office, but also in our stores. They are very passionate about the industry in general, food, our customers, and helping them make the right decisions. So you'll see that come to life when you're in our stores through our people, which is one of the reasons why we have had the success that we've had. So
It's wonderful to see the longevity. You're there, what, 14, 15 years. Brody and Mason are all in double digits. It's pretty amazing to see. Katie, one of the best, I don't know if it's a secret, but Sprouts is KeHE's largest customer. What makes Sprouts so special to work with?
Yeah, so much of what Kim just mentioned, I think, are some of the things that make Sprouts special to work with. I think the alignment between the two companies' strategies is really important. And really, over the past couple of years, we've been leaning into a one team mentality and culture. So it's not a KeHE culture and team or a Sprouts culture and team, but we have to be thinking about our teams as one. Really all centered around the innovation strategy, the speed to market, the end-to-end collaboration around supply chain excellence as well. So aligning those things, when you think about KeHE's strategy, it's really 3 distinct pillars: operational excellence, growth, and partner success. And so many of those things around operational excellence and growth align to Sprout strategy, which then just leads to our partnership being a success. And unlike many of our other large retailer partners, KeHE acts more like a wholesaler to Sprouts versus a distributor, meaning like majority of assortment, specifically in center store, and volume come through KeHE. So it's a special partnership because we really need to think of our teams as one and be leaning into the supply chain together.
And how are you organized to support the Sprouts team? How do you, operationally and, from a sales perspective?
Yeah, so our Sprouts account team is made up of 31 people, most of which are based right in Phoenix near the Sprouts office at a KeHE office. So that's a combination of account management, supply assurance, and operational support. In addition to that, we have 10 dedicated supply chain team members. So to think seamless demand to Sprouts. And we have a couple growth solutions team members that support Sprouts with their innovation efforts, data insights, trends, and category management support as well. So it's a large, robust team to support the uniqueness and the alignment between that one team mentality that I mentioned.
That's and with them, with Sprouts looking to double their store count, that team's going to get larger soon. So a lot. So the reason we're here, we've talked a little bit about it, is the introduction into the Chicago market, and Brody or Mason, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that to us as well.
Yeah, I can give a quick
Okay.
overview, Greg, on for one, this is one of the most exciting markets that personally for me, as I have had over the many years that I've been here. We get a lot of feedback from customers and even partners within the industry, and the number one market that we get asked about is Chicago for years. And so what's exciting is a lot of the customers in Chicago already know who Sprouts are, whether they travel out of town or maybe they snowbird in certain areas. So for us to be finally going into Chicagoland is exciting for us. And like I said, it's hard to believe we're here. But we plan to go into the market. I think we have 140 approved sites, right? Starting in 2027, we'll be coming into the market. And then, there's a lot that we're going to be doing to ensure success in terms of, how much critical mass we can get within the market so that we can, from a messaging and marketing standpoint, really leverage, the awareness, so you'll see us come in there pretty quick, and, both in the city and out of the city. So, I think for us, it's a huge priority. Is how we're already starting plans now and have been for the last year on how we're going to staff the market and be prepared for our launch. So yeah.
That's fabulous. Now, are the 140 stores, is that the Chicago market, or is that the across the country you're planning to open 140 new stores?
Broader Chicago, broader Midwest Chicago area.
Wow,
Yep.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
So,
Look forward to it. So, how, one of the things that we're here to talk about is how can brands work with Sprouts? So, certainly there's the Forager, and then there's also the getting into the mainstream side of it. So, if you could help us understand that just a little bit.
Yeah, I could go ahead and take that. So first I'll kind of cover how to get into Sprouts in general, talk about the general business, and then I'll kind of head into the foraging side in particular. On the normal side of business, whether it be grocery, vitamins, HBA, bulk, dairy, we all have a reset calendar, and this reset calendar can be found at our new item portal, which is sprouts.com/new vendors. And on that website, you can find that on sprouts.com, by the way. If you just scroll down, you'll be able to find that website. You don't need to remember that. So every category within each department has a reset calendar, and you'll be able to access that at any time. It updates in real time. So if we make any changes to the reset calendar, you'll be able to see within a minute or two of us actually making that change. So most brands should be well aware of when their reset time frame is, or their submission time frame is. If you're wanting to just get into Sprouts and get into the category that you're wanting to be in, or that you feel like you should be in, we encourage you to submit during that submission period for that appropriate category. That's the typical way of doing business with Sprouts. Heading into the foraging side of things, I always compare us to playing a video game. You have to play the tutorial to learn how to play before you actually get into the main game. And that's who the foragers are. We allow emerging brands to kind of get a start in brick and mortar. Maybe it's the first time they've ever been in brick and mortar, first time they've ever been in a retailer. Maybe they're just selling D2C. This is the first stab at brick and mortar, and we allow brands to do so to get their foot in the door without really um, over investing and spending a ton of capital. We don't charge free fills to be part of this program. So basically, what we do is we onboard brands, give them the full white glove service. We call it babysitting, and we really we shepherd you through the process of getting started in a retailer. Specifically Sprouts, we have our own, requirements. We have a prohibited ingredient standard list that we're very strict on. No suit like artificial colors or preservatives, sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, artificial anything. That's all no-nos. So, and that's found at that website as well. If you want a copy of that, we're pretty strict because we believe in providing nutrient dense, clean products to our customers. Going back to living and eating healthier. Sprouts motto there. We want to make sure that we're bringing in the right stuff for our customers. We want to provide that transparency. We want to create that trust. So with the foraging department, if you're a new brand, you reach out to the foragers. We typically set up an intro call with you, understand where you are in your part of business, and kind of what your channel strategy is, how you want to get into the CPG world, and where you want to go from there. Typically, we advise starting in the natural world. So if you were to come to natural first, come to the foragers first, there's typically something we can do for you. We have you submit to Sprouts. We scorecard every single item that comes into Sprouts. So if you submit to us, I don't care if you submitted 27 different times or if this is the very first time, we scorecard you as if it's the first time we've ever seen you. And we give you a score on a scale of 1 to 5. And through different categories such as aesthetic of the packaging, taste, price point. There's a few others on there as well. But if you're averaging an average score of 3 or above, we put you on what's called the pipeline. And if you're on this pipeline, you will go on to the Forager Find set, which we just got a name this year. It's the Forager Finds. We used to call ourselves the Innovation Center, but the Forager Finds display. And what we do in a nutshell, it's a 90-day test and learn situation. So we put you on the display for 90 days. We give you 12 weeks to show us what you've got, and we grade you based off of really sales units per store per week per SKU. So we're looking at velocity, we're looking at sales, we're looking at marketing support during the 12 weeks. So we're taking all of that into account as you go through these 12 weeks. And if you're meeting or exceeding the category averages for the appropriate category that you want to be in, you'll what we call graduate into the inline set. So if a brand is succeeding on that Forager Finds display, we'll get with a category manager who's ultimately going to be owning that P&L, and we'll recommend brands. And if they feel like it's a good choice to bring them into the set, they'll graduate you into the set, and then you play the real game from there. You go from the tutorial to the main game. That's when promotions and everything come into effect. We don't necessarily like you to promote on the Forager Finds display. Anybody could sell at BOGO. Anybody could sell at 25% off. What we are really looking for is how are the customers showing up for you organically at full retail? How are you supporting the brand through marketing, through demo support, through mobile coupons? There's a few other avenues that you can choose, which we'll get into a little bit later. But ultimately, that's the Forager team in a nutshell. We give folks the first chance at getting into retail, specifically into natural retail, and KeHE works really well with us. We have an actual team on the KeHE side. We call them our foragers as well. We consider ourselves one big team. That's how close we work with KeHE on a regular basis. Troy Reynolds and Casey DeFilippo, I think her last name is, those two are working with us almost every single day, and they're incredible to work with. But those are the foragers there that can help you get to that next stage.
And then how many, when you're in that forager stage, are we talking 2 stores, 1 store, 20 stores? Like what is the scale of that?
Yeah, typically we like to launch in all stores. So we're about 500 stores right now. If you have the ability to get into 500 stores and you have the capital to produce those POs, fulfill them into the 8 KeHE DCs that we utilize, if you could swing it, we'd love to have you do 500 stores. And that gives you a really good insight of where you perform the best. maybe you understand you don't do too well in Florida, but you rock it in Arizona and California and New York. We give a weekly sales movement report, which is unique to our team. And so you're in the loop every single week on how you're performing in what state at what store specifically. It's really, we do a deep dive on a weekly basis, so you know exactly how you're performing and where you need to step it up. If there's a certain market in the area that you need a little love, or that needs a little love, maybe Georgia needs, a demo or two over there, or, somewhere in Oklahoma, there's an opportunity for you to take a look at the data and make meaningful changes to kind of change the trajectory of your brand during the 12 weeks.
So it's not a TPR or reduced price thing. It's demos and other love that you can give the stores to try and create the awareness that you're looking for.
Yep, exactly. The promos we save until you're in the main set, and then that you have a promo calendar. You work with the category manager. What we're looking for is, how do you show up for the brand? We all know there's a lot of passionate founders out there. We really want you to show us what you've got. We want to make sure that you're a good partner with Sprouts. I always say it needs to be a mutually beneficial partnership. If there's only one team doing all of the work, and we have another side that's just sitting down on the sideline watching the game, that's
Sure.
not good for us. We want you to be in the game, playing and playing an active role in your brand success. And that's how we can really capitalize off of that together and get your brand to the next level.
And one other quick question around categories. Obviously, on a dry end cap, frozen, refrigerated, other items. How does that get handled?
Yeah, the foragers work with the merchants on a daily basis, and that's every merchant. Like I said, grocery, bulk, vitamins, HBA, frozen, and dairy. It's a little tricky for us when it comes to cold space, because we don't have coolers attached to the Forager Finds display. But what we do have is that relationship with the category managers. So if we see a brand that's really neat that's coming in, but they happen to be frozen, but it meets all of our criteria, we'll get it in front of the frozen buyers and really have them take a serious look at the brand. Many departments are actually starting to carry or have like a Forager Finds shelf within their department.
Wow.
Or if in frozen, I think they have a whole cooler that they're really trying out new innovative brands. Sprouts is known for innovation and differentiation. That's how we thrive. That's how we survive, in this crazy market that we're dealing with today. And so our departments are stepping up in a big way, and they're really taking innovation serious. So I don't want anybody to be discouraged on this call. If you have a frozen brand or a perishable brand in general, submit it to us. We'll get it to the right place, and we'll make sure that we're fair doing it. Like I said, we scorecard every single brand that comes in.
And we'll probably talk about this a little more at the end, but the correct contacts are on that sprouts.com website, I trust.
It should be. If you
Wow.
need any contacts or any foot in the door, just reach out to the team. We have a foragerfinds@sprouts.com email that you can email at any time, and it goes to the entire group of foragers here.
Good.
And one of us will be able to get you to the right person if need be.
That's good. We'll share that obviously in the notes. And
Great.
as you talked about going to, thank you. As someone put it in the chat, as you talked about going to all the stores, obviously that's something that needs to be done via a distributor like KeHE. Katie, how do you guys work with these new forager brands, and how does that work at KeHE?
Yeah, KeHE and Katie is a tongue twister, Greg. I'll give you that.
Yeah, undercaffeinated this morning, I'm sure.
Well, it's this afternoon too, so you're morning still. So I think our innovation strategies between KeHE and Sprouts align pretty well. We have a robust innovation strategy at KeHE, which includes foraging, not to be, confused with the forager team at Sprouts, but really how do we find the brands, curating, how do we ensure the innovation really plays a unique role in our overall product portfolio, and then cultivating brands. How do we help new and emerging brands grow and be successful with not only the right programming, but the right resources and education and communication? Because we know that demystifying distribution as new brands are launching is really important. So in addition to Sprouts having a scorecard, we also have our innovation scorecard made up of 7 key factors weighted differently to identify if the product's right to bring into our portfolio and identify if the product's right to bring to the Sprouts team. We have what we call our trend finder events 3 times per year. This is really speed dating between our national category management team here and brands that are not currently in our portfolio. So we meet with probably 500 to 700 applications per each of these events, and we meet with about 120 or so suppliers at each. And then we hand out what we call our golden tickets, which really just means the category manager is excited about onboarding that brand into our portfolio, and we're going to move forward with the process. A few other key ways that we find brands being international shows. We have a large international show strategy, knowing that oftentimes trends start overseas and then eventually graduate to here, to the US. And then, through Naturally Network and incubators and accelerators, we have a lot of connectivity there. For Sprouts specifically, our teams present monthly new items to the Sprouts teams through our Growth Solutions team, who I mentioned earlier, really acts as a conduit between the Sprouts team and then our national category strategy here. And then we also instituted in the last year or two really CM to CM collaboration to foster direct communication between KeHE's category manager and the Sprouts category manager. They really just discuss category strategy, new and emerging brands, and how KeHE can support their vision. I think to answer your question really about when Sprouts is onboarding a brand into Forager, we have a lot of programming to support those brands as well. So we have a few supplier programs that offer high touch, high visibility, and a financial assistance component associated to them. KeHE Elevate being one of those, our new and emerging brands program, Care Trade being another, our mission-based brands program, and then Diverse Trade being the third, diverse own brands program. And then about 18 months ago, the one thing I wanted to note is we launched what we call our new and small supplier administrative allowance program. It's a 2% flat rate program. It's really helping brands forecast spend at the time of launch. So those brands are waived 5 or 6 different costs associated with gaining distribution. So think new item setup and new item introductory allowance and extra performance and MCB. And we have almost 600 active suppliers in that program and have invested about $2.5 million in new and emerging brands there, which has really helped when Sprouts is onboarding brands into Forager. And then they're also part of that new and small supplier AAP program. And then just one other call out. We hear constantly, and the brands on the line, you guys know it, that cash flow at the time of launch is one of the biggest hurdles for new brands. So we did update our payment policy. We released payment hold by DC versus enterprise level to really help support new brands with free cash flow to be able to continue to produce and be able to continue to grow with our customers like Sprouts.
Yeah, those are really exciting programs that can help brands out. And if someone's lucky enough to be able to connect with Sprouts and get into 500 stores, those type of things can really help them be able to survive that type of growth. It's hard, growth is great, but it's also hard. So that's wonderful. The foraging team is looking, for new things. What are the things that you're seeing? What are you looking for? What are the trends that right now are kind of the ones that you're looking for that's out there to bring into the Sprouts distribution team?
Yeah, Greg, I'll take this one. We're always looking at, anything new, innovative, and exciting. So very broad term, I know, but, to kind of narrow that down for the Forager Finds display, we are always looking at dry grocery items, vitamins, supplements, health and body care. Those are kind of our core, shelf stable and ambient products. But we're always looking at every other category too in the stores. But I think to make it very specific, from like a trend or, what's the next best thing kind of standpoint, we're looking for protein, we're looking for fiber. Those are some really good trends going on right now that we're seeing in the natural food space. Clean ingredients too. I know that's kind of like at the core of Sprouts's motto and what our entire world revolves around is clean eating. But natural flavorings are becoming a really big topic of conversation on what they mean. So it's cleaning up the products and making it very transparent for our customers. I know Brody and the foraging team love to say that, transparency creates trust, trust creates dollars. I'm totally stealing that from Brody right now. But it's definitely what our customers know and want from Sprouts. So looking at that from dry grocery, vitamin supplements, health and body care, that's kind of where our ingredient standards are looking at from, just making sure that's clean and, inviting for our customers. Going to the trend standpoint, though, protein is still very big, but in 2027, we're definitely starting to see fiber come into focus, gut health, clean eating, making sure that, you're eating good products that help regulate, your daily activities. And then seeing, protein and fiber with something in addition, we're seeing collagen being really well for skincare, creatine, for, just bodily functions from a daily perspective. Those are definitely things that we have in the pipeline and, continue to have conversations with our brands. The one thing though that I do want to, reiterate is that as foraging, we are a separate entity in terms of Sprouts, as our own department, but we're always working with our buyers in office. Every day we're having different conversations with different buyers. We have weekly, monthly, recurring meetings to make sure that everybody stays, in that conversation. And so just talking about strategies, innovation, making sure that we're a good complement to our buying partners. Brody, myself, Kim, and the team work really closely with the merchandising partners, which is super exciting because I don't know any other company that does that, which, allows a separate group like us foragers to, go find these new exciting items and bring them back to the teams. Those are definitely the things that I would say we're looking for right now, which is really awesome and unique.
So one of the questions as you guys continue to expand your footprint might be around, there are some things in the Chicago market they're going to sell very different than, Texas market or New York market or Florida, or how is that handled at Sprouts?
Yeah, we do some local, regional, programs. A lot of those I know are more perishable, like produce, floral, meat, seafood, deli. We work very closely though with those teams where although that might not run on our foraging centers, we'll definitely have those conversations and bring those items to the specific buyers here in the office. But from, a shelf stable ambient product standpoint, we're going to Brody's point, that he talked about a few minutes ago. We can do regionalized tests. And, as we build the Chicago footprint, we're open to testing in, select stores that would be specific to the Chicago market. I know there's some good food trends that are very niche, I would say, to Chicago that we could definitely try in those markets from a forager find standpoint, and then expand that, to a nationwide footprint if a brand wants to start smaller and then eventually grow. We're very flexible in that. I would say though, we're open to the conversations. And so obviously doing this webinar and, getting our foot in the door, we're just ready to open, I think, the conversations and meet with our, future brand partners to talk about what fits them best. And, we can create plans around that to support their growth as needed.
One of the things, Mason, you mentioned in a prior conversation was around if you find the right brand, the right trend that may not meet all the right, for lack of a better word, ingredients or things like that, you've said that you're able to work with them. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, we never want to shut the door fully on any brands. And, we talk about our conventional partners, in grocery retail where their ingredient standards are not as strict or as stringent as ours are. What we love to do is have the conversation, see if there's an opportunity to clean up your products. If you do have, a dirty or a prohibited ingredient in your products, that doesn't shut the door completely. We just want to at least have the conversation to say, can you take those ingredients out? Can you replace them with more natural focused ingredients? We're always open to the conversations though. So that does not stop you from getting into Sprouts. That just starts the conversation to say, if you're open to reformulating your items, changing specific things in it, we'd love to, going to Brody's point, scorecard as many times as possible to make sure that it's a good fit for our customers at the end of the day. And so, to having those conversations, we're ready to talk. And if you're ready to make meaningful changes, if your product does not fit our standards, we're open to the conversation and seeing where it goes.
Wonderful. One of the areas that's become a big focus in retail grocery now is people ordering online, whether it's to pick up in store or deliver. One of the things I was reading was Sprouts is doing an amazing job. 20% of your sales, of the numbers that are reported, is coming from people ordering and picking up in store. What do you attribute that to? Is that
Yeah,
why is Sprouts over indexing? I would guess.
Yeah, I think when we stood that business up pretty quickly during COVID, as you recall, right? And I think we were a little surprised at how well it did for us as well, being a fresh business, right? But we are delighted with the 16 plus penetration numbers that we see, even the growth of it. We're seeing more recently pickup being really trending for us, but I think it's just our customer wants a more omni experience, right? They'll come into our stores when they have time to walk around, and they like the treasure hunt of kind of what we provide, specifically like with the forager finds. But they also need a more convenient option sometimes. And so it's nice that we have that balance. And so when we look forward, we look at it from a more total omni approach than we do just brick and mortar versus e-com.
Going back to, thank you, Kim. That's really interesting. Katie, did you want to jump in there?
I was going to jump in just really quick. I think too, shoppers are just so much more informed today. So they might not necessarily have to go into the store to learn. Technology plays such a big role in grocery shopping, and that grocery shopping can happen at home. There's so many apps now available to figure out the ingredients that the foraging team just talked about, the attribution that they talked about. And really, consumers are expecting, I think, more transparency from brands, and social media is helping consumers inform themselves overall. So I think just how informed the shopper is today is changing their shopping habits and their spending habits, and is allowing them to be more flexible in that discovery.
And how do for the items that are on the forager, are those items also available to be ordered online? And how can they create awareness around the fact that they're now in in your stores?
Yeah, I don't know who wanted to go for it. I'm
Go
going
ahead,
for it right
Brent.
now. Yeah, so yes, the answer is yes, they'll be included online, as long as each brand has to get set up through, if we choose KeHE. We also utilize IX1 and a few other companies to get the images loaded online and onto the actual website. So as long as you're doing everything and meeting your checkpoints and paperwork and all the things you have to do to get set up with Sprouts, it should be able to to show up online, as long as the item is showing as an active item selling currently in the store. It'll pop up for that specific location. So if you sell out in a certain store, you might pop off for a little bit until we get more product in there. But yes, ultimately you'll be treated as if you're a everyday item at Sprouts during the time on the forager finds.
One other question around the forager finds. You want the products to be selling similar to, call it a mainstream item in pick pancake mix or whatever it is. But they're not in the same spot. Is there, a kind of an allowance to say, because if someone's thinking pancake mix, typically they're going to go to the pancake, area. And, how do you work that, and how does that figure into whether the brand's being successful or not as successful?
Yeah, I love that question. And it's led us to kind of be more selective and more intentional with the items that we actually run on the forager finds. If we do run an item such as olive oil, for example, we know people aren't going to the forager finds display to find olive oil. They're going to the oil set. If we do happen to run an item over there, we understand that it's going to do much better in that set. And so we'll likely put a ×2 or ×3 multiplier on whatever sales that we're seeing, depending on, kind of what velocity we're seeing at the same time in that current set. So think of it this way. We're always taking a 12-week data set, and what we're judging you based off of is like items in that category during the same time frame. So don't be worried if we're running a beverage in Q4. We're still taking the average sales in Q4 of the functional beverage or soda set. We're trying to be as fair as possible. But going back onto my point where we're being a little bit more selective with items, we're understanding sometimes we don't get the outcome that we want. And if a brand doesn't graduate at the end of the program, and they may attribute it towards, oh, okay, well, I shouldn't have been there in the first place. I belong in the actual set. We don't want to set anybody up for failure. That's never the intention. We want to help everybody grow and be successful. This is the whole intention of our team, is to get in and be prepared and be able to succeed at not just at Sprouts, but in the CPG world in general. So in order to kind of save people from that, we're just a little bit more selective with what categories we're running. So we kind of stay away from baking mixes and olive oils, only because they're not really impulsive. And that's the whole vibe of this Forager Finds display, is it's an impulse zone. We do a lot of chips, we do a lot of beverages. It's not impossible to have a baking, mix on there. It's not impossible to have an olive oil, but we just need to be a little bit, we have to be realistic. We're a grocery store. We're here to sell products. We need to make sure that we're putting the right items on that display while taking care of the brands at the same time.
And as you're looking for kind of these new cutting edge items, it sounds like you also want to mentor them through so that they can graduate. You don't want them to be in and out. You want them to graduate. Can you talk a little bit about how you help brands out in that way?
Yeah, if you don't graduate, we take that personally. We put our names on these items. We want to partner with you guys. I've seen a few questions on what is your graduation rate? What is the amount of items that actually come in through the set? I'll say the national average with every retailer is about 11%. We're at 39% right now for a graduation rate, which is the highest we've ever had on the Forager team. It's been growing every year, which is good for us to see. Obviously, it means that we're doing, right by our brands. We're being a little bit more intentional. We're really trying to set these brands up for success. So the 39% graduation rate, it may seem low, but it's really like much higher than the national average. And when you incorporate every other, mass retailer, club retailer, are they here the same time frame? 12 weeks later, are they in the main set or not? 11% versus 39. So we take that as a huge win, and we take a lot of pride with that. And in order to kind of achieve that, we have these calls with brands, and we get them ready to do business with Sprouts. And so we go over not just, okay, how are you going to show up? The easy part is getting on the shelf. The hard part is getting through the register. And how are you going to do that appropriately? Do you have a solid marketing plan going? And we understand emerging brands come with emerging paychecks. You don't have a lot of capital to be, throwing out there and trying to throw, commercials and a bunch of social media out there. We'll help we'll try our best to help with resharing posts and stuff like that on our marketing team. But what we really want to see is, we'll help you show up for the brand to the best of your capabilities. We partner with demo companies that offer discounted rates for foraging brands. Like I said before, we don't charge you a free fill, and we pay you a little bit quicker if you're on, the KeHE Forager PNP. So we try to get you as much cash as quickly as possible right off the bat, so then you can then use that money, that investment there, and reinvest it into your brand in the form of producing more products or going after more demos, or just supporting your product in any way possible. We'll give you all of the resources you need to be successful, but we really need the brands to step up and say, hey, I've got 12 weeks to show Sprouts that I'm worth it, that I could pay the rent, that I'm a formidable brand. How am I going to do this? And just talk to us. We'll help you come up with a great plan, and we'll let you know if it's maybe a little too ambitious or not as ambitious. We want you to not, bet the farm on everything and go broke doing it, but we want you to spend a meaningful amount, as a brand should, to market their brand appropriately. And we'll just guide you on what works best for us and ultimately for the brands that we've seen succeed in the long run.
I would say too, Greg, one of the unique things about us using this platform for a test and learn opportunity for the brands is it really helps them to learn, right? So there's a lot of brands that are not the same product when they start than when they are ready for scale, right? And what's unique about Sprouts is we're willing to help them through that journey, right? Like, we get excited. Sometimes we're so tip of the spear, right? Or, want to lean in with the brand to get it in front of our customer. But a lot of times we learn a lot. Hey, pricing isn't where it needs to be. We're not getting repeat. Is there formulation changes that need to happen? There are so many pivots that can happen in that time frame that is really important for the brands to learn if they're going to scale. Because to try to learn that stuff when you're already in, 4 different retailers is really hard. And so I think brands should look at it as an opportunity to use us to learn those things along the way. So when they are ready for bigger scale, they've cut, I would even say on the distribution side, to be able to understand that landscape a little bit better and more focused before you're, launching across, more retailers. It seems more beneficial to get that all that growth, learnings under your belt before you scale.
No,
I love that, Kim.
that's such a
I was
huge thing. Katie, go ahead, and then I'll add
I
my
was just
point.
gonna say one thing, Greg. I was just gonna say I love that because I always say to new brands, like, don't underpromise and underdeliver. Like, understand the
Yeah.
costs associated with gaining distribution, both through distribution and the retailer's expectations that Brody talked about from a spend and growth strategy standpoint. And have a strategy as a brand and stick to your strategy and do fewer things really well before expanding. And the Forager Finds display gives you that opportunity to try it and learn it and understand your competition and how you're going to win before really expanding. There are so many tools and resources out there for new brands. And I would say, like, from my standpoint, KeHE and Sprouts are transparent maybe to a fault on what our expectations are and what our compliance models look like, and just making sure you understand those things and before doing that expansion that Kim talked about is so important.
No, I think the things that you're talking about with the feedback, that is one of the things that I learned in my Frontera experiences. Getting great feedback from the retailer was the most important thing. And we always, and to many of the folks I've spoken with, I talk about finding some friendlies. And by that, I mean a friendly customer who will give you good, honest feedback so that you can make the changes that you need. Because the retailer sees it differently than you see it. And listening to, what the feedback they're getting is so critically important that, this program is it's super exciting, quite honestly. It's just one of the neater things that I've learned about more recently. So it's really fun. So I think that at this point in time, we're going to do a quick, Naturally Chicago advertisement. And then I think there's some questions that I think showed up in the chat that we'll try and work through. But if we can move to some of the things that Naturally Chicago wants to, Bob, are you there? There we go.
There we go.
That's me. So, from a Naturally Chicago standpoint, what we're all about is helping our brands, and we help them through, online programming, events such as these. We've got a whole series of educational events coming up for the back half of this year. Peer engagement, networking. We're going to have probably our biggest networking event of the year comes up in May at our pitch event. Curated introductions to KeHE and Sprouts and many of our other retail. And all this is, we've got a $500 a year entry fee for most brands. Our Pitch Slam event, we can move to the next page, Jim, is coming up. It's May 27th. It's right downtown Chicago, venue 610, the same place we were last year. Kim and Katie are going to be part of our panel, talking about retail. We've got a panel on investments. We've got a panel. I'm going to sit down with Deb Conklin at KeHE, and then we have an omni-channel, working with Instacart and some of the other great, direct-to-consumer outlets that are out there. We have a venue 6. Excuse me. Next, please. We've got the Well Network in association an event, a networking event on May 18th that is coming up. That's going to be from 5 to 8 p.m. And then our last event that we're going to talk about, next page, please, is our networking happy hour. It's going to be around the KeHE show with TrueUp. So a lot of good and exciting things coming up in our Naturally Chicago future here. So let me see if I can get some of these questions. I think
And
some
Greg,
of them go ahead.
yeah, a lot of them have been coming in through chat, so you might want to make sure you look in that queue too.
Yep, I'm looking at that. So the replenishment, one of the questions around replenishment during an 8-week trial, how does that work? And it kind of feels like there might have to be a lot of inventory out there to support this. And, we want 30% to work, but there's going to be others that don't work. And how do we work through that?
Yeah, I'll take this one, team. Yeah, for inventory, that's the tricky part always when it comes to getting started and lasting 12 weeks. We have a good understanding of how certain items do, certain categories do. So what we'll do is kind of take the average of that particular category. Say if you're a gummy bear, we'll take the average units per store per week per SKU of the candy set. And maybe the subcategory of gummy bears, for example, and then we'll use that, multiply it by 12 to understand how many cases we should be ordering. We usually order pretty conservatively. We want to run out on this display. And the reason why is because if the product doesn't sell at the end of the program and it comes off the shelf, it usually gets marked down to 99 cents, manager special, and we end up losing a lot of margin and our stores get angry at us. So we don't want to anger the stores, and we don't want to give the wrong impression of doing well at the end of a test because products are being marked down outrageously. So we want to make sure that we order just enough product. And if a product does really, really well during the test, we'll of course do a PO, but we need to work with the brand to make sure that they can deliver the next PO that we want to order expeditiously so that they can actually get into the AKE DCs within like 10 to 14 days. Because every day matters when you're in a 12-week set. I can't be waiting 3 to 4 weeks for more product to come in. That's a third of the program, so we can't, our hands are a little tied at some point, but if your brand is doing very, very well right off the bat, we'll order more right away. But ultimately, we order typically anywhere between 1 to 3 cases per SKU per store to get started.
Yep. Brody, to add to that too, is that Sprouts is liable for the inventory, which I think is wonderful in terms of, the partnership and, giving that type of, funding to a brand where, we're liable for the product at the end of the day. That's kind of our investment to growing and helping these emerging brands. So I think that's a really valuable piece that not any other retailer that I know of does. And that's kind of why, to Brody's point, we're a little conservative on those numbers.
Yeah, that's huge. One of the other questions was around if a brand does have an item in the store and they're going into a different category. So brands there, maybe in the olive oil set using your example, Brody, and now they're going into, I don't know, something else, pancake mix. Let's keep using that. Would that be eligible for the Forager, or do they need to, how does that work?
Yeah, I can take this one. We are always open to brands line extensions, and that does not shut the door on coming into the Forager Finds program. You're now a formidable brand, and going to the olive oil point, you're olive oil, and you want to go expand into baking mixes. We're always open to those conversations. We work with lots of brands that are in our stores already and come out with new flavors, new lines, a line extension. We're always open to those conversations, and going back to working with the category managers, the category buyers that are here internally for different categories, we continue to have strategy meetings with them and their brands all the time that do lead to those brands having line extensions. So that's another great, piece of the Forager Finds program is that these brands will then come back to us and create, a different line with different ingredients that, meet all our standards. We're always open to those, line extensions and new items that these, brands that are already in our sets bring to us, which is super awesome.
Fantastic.
And another bucket that we can pull out of for new items.
So great question here around, is the Sprouts team going to be at the KeHE show?
Yes, I am going to be at the KeHE show, so I will be there, and then there will be select grocery, dairy, frozen, and and perishable buyers that'll be there. I don't know specifically counts, but the whole Sprouts team will be there to represent, and we're looking forward to it.
And I am looking to put some words in your mouth. We talked earlier about possibly getting a showcase, in Phoenix maybe, or could you talk? Yeah, I'm going to push that a little
Yeah,
bit. What
I
can
would
we do
love to
there?
talk about that. Let's talk about it. So I know our team will be there May 27th for obviously the Naturally Pitch Slam, which Kim and Katie I know will be kind of leading, but Brody and myself will be there for that, which we're really looking forward to here in the next few weeks. Um, the exciting part with Sprouts growing so quickly, so fast as we are outgrowing our office, so we are moving into a bigger office in August because there's no time to move in Phoenix when it's 120 degrees in the middle of August, but that's just typically what you do when you live here. So we are moving into a new office in August, but after that transition, we are looking to do 2 pitch slams. Obviously, one, going back to Chicago, kind of in Q3 to do one with Naturally Chicago and, continue to incubate the partnership we have with you guys. That is one we're looking forward to doing in your guys' home ground. But since we'll have our new exciting office, which, we do a really good setup with pitch slams, is having about 10, 12 brands coming to Phoenix. Looking to do that once we get settled here in, the end of Q3, beginning of Q4, kind of looking in when it's actually nice to come to Phoenix in about October. Doing something in our home ground too as well. And, going back to the feedback and giving a pitch slam setup in our home grounds, we do a great setup of doing kind of like a tabletop show with a pitch slam where the entire office, which is about 500-600 people that are going to be in the office, love to come and, give you feedback too, which I think is really exciting and unique that we've been starting to do this year. But looking to do, one in Phoenix and one in Chicago with you guys. And we don't have any specific dates yet, but we're working on those once we kind of lock down the move. And, once we're settled here, we will have more information, I would say, towards, the end of the year, which is super exciting.
It's very exciting. Well, hey, as we wrap up here, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for taking the time to meet with us and our many brand partners that are able to join us. Katie, thank you so much on behalf of Naturally Chicago and all that KeHE does to help us out. And Kim, Mason, and Brody, really, really appreciate all your time. So thank you very much. And we'll be sharing for members that are on and some that couldn't make it. We'll be sharing a link to this and some notes as well, and the website and as much as we can to make it as easy for our brand members to access Sprouts information. So once again, thanks so much. We can't be more excited about Sprouts coming to the Chicagoland area. So thanks and enjoy the balance of your day, guys.
Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great day.
Everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Guys.